Welcome to the new Overlords Podcast, a video game show where I'm joined every week by someone who knows it's not yet time to hang Christmas lights, my co-host Sema. Hello there, Sema.
The reason I know that is because I've heard it many, many times.
From me?
Yes, from the you.
Boy, there are other rants I could be ranting about today, but today my rant is about Christmas lights. So, Halloween wraps up. The day after Halloween, multiple houses on my block, which is not very big, and we didn't have that many people putting up Halloween decorations. There was a good amount. There were some fine ones. Halloween decorations come down. It must have been like as soon as the last trick-or-treater was done, they were out there taking the Halloween decorations down and putting up the Christmas lights. There's a house across the street that every night on a timer now has Christmas lights already. That's incorrect. That's wrong. That's El Dia de los Muertos. That is the day that is not, this is completely wrong day. When is the right day that you can play Christmas music and put up the lights and start this Christmas season, Sema?
The wisdom according to Max is the day after Thanksgiving.
Yes, the day after
No
U.S.
earlier.
Thanksgiving. No earlier, no later.
And nobody else. Not
later.
The day after
Actually,
anybody
later
else's.
is fine. You can wait
Yeah,
until
later.
the first week in December even.
Yeah, later is fine.
You could wait till the day before Christmas and put up some decorations. In fact, we have a holiday tradition where multiple years, me and my kids go get the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve morning because people are like coming in town. So I'll like put out some decorations and stuff and have the stuff out and ready to go, but it's not yet time. And then it's fun to wait until my son comes in from California or something. And then we go and do it and we get like the last tree on the lot and it looks like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree and it's all ratty and that's kind of fun. We've done that a couple times. Anyway, it is now harvest season. So enjoy
You mean Halloween?
the extended Falloween season with your Falloweener. All right. You know what we are here to talk about today, though, is Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which is Verygood. I'm quite happy about it. So let's dive right into that.
So, naturally, our story begins where all great stories begin. With the seediest bar in town.
Will there be a cantina? I like this game. So that's what we're going to talk about today, about how I like it and why I like it. And I think it's nice to be a person who creates video game content and likes games. How about you, Sema? Do you like games?
Or who plays games? Yes, I do like games.
We like games and we talk about what we like. And even if there was one thing I didn't like, I wouldn't make my whole personality about each one thing I didn't like about any game I played. I'm trying to be positive here, Sema. Stop it.
We're changing the world.
You're pulling me into rants. See, Sema.
I
have to blame it on somebody.
I'm sorry.
I can't. It's not me. It's not cognitive dissonance in my mind.
It's not me.
It must be something else external. Anyway, it's a good game. I've played it about 14 hours now. So I played, it had to be that because I played it quite a bit over the weekend. Played it, like an hour a night here and there. And so it got far enough where I think I have a pretty good feeling and understanding of what it is and where things are. What I don't have, and this is, I think, where some of the mixed reviews, like most of the reviews from actual people who play games are pretty positive. Some of the, the overriding narrative is, everybody's going to make the video about the one thing they don't like, but the reviews on Steam are mostly positive, not overwhelmingly positive, but mostly positive, that kind of thing. But a little bit of the narrative says, I am such a Dragon Age fan of all the old Dragon Age games that this doesn't feel enough like the old games, and it doesn't bring forward enough of the old games, and doesn't have the tone of all of the old games enough that I don't like it for that reason. I can't comment on that. So if that is the case for you, that could be an entirely valid criticism. I have not played all of the old Dragon Age games. I didn't play any of the Dragon Age games. This is my first Dragon Age game. And so far, objectively, I cannot see how anyone objectively cannot say that this is a good game. You could say it's a good game, but I don't like it. I would, the Mona Lisa is a good painting. I wouldn't hang it in my house. It's not my favorite kind of art, but it is a good painting. War and Peace is a good book. I don't have fun reading it and don't want to, and that's okay, but it's a good book. This is objectively a good game. It doesn't have very many bugs. The artwork is really, really good. Top-notch execution on the artwork. It is stylized, and you may not like the style, but the style is very cohesive and it fits well together. I think it works well. The voice acting is really good. We'll talk about some of that. And the voice I had to pick for my Rook, but that's also really good. It's very pretty world. And you found out that it is Unreal. This is done in Unreal Engine. And this is the first Dragon Age that's done in Unreal Engine. I can see that. I can see it. Because
That's not what I found out. It's what the article actually said was all the Mass Effects were done in Unreal.
Oh.
And then the early the context was, will you ever do a collection of Dragon Age games like you did for Mass Effect? And the answer was, it was easier for Mass Effect because they were all done on Unreal.
Oh.
It's more challenging for Dragon Age because the early Dragon Age games, which started in 2009, were done in a different engine,
Yes.
Eclipse.
Yeah, which
And
I thought
they
that
didn't.
I thought you meant by that, and then this one was all then done in Unreal,
I'm
which may or may
guessing-
not be.
I'm guessing that all the rest of the Dragon Ages then were done in Unreal because why would you not if you're already doing Mass Effect in Unreal?
Yeah.
But they didn't specifically say that.
I bet it is. It looks like Unreal to me.
Yeah.
In fact, that being the case was also quite fun for me because
The Forester says they use Frostbite.
do they? For this? For this Dragon Age? Well, maybe. It's still shaders and special effects, and I recognize a lot of what they're doing mechanically in some of their effects and their textures and their animations, and that in and of itself was a fun part of it because we're in the middle of doing some of that for our little tiny game, just little bits and pieces, and I could see things that they did in here where I said, oh hey, we could we could do that. My team could do this. Well, my team could make this part of the game if we had infinite time.
So maybe the point that they were making was that since all the Mass Effects were on the same engine.
Yes, and that does make sense.
I'm looking at this. Yeah, the Veilguard is on Frostbite. Inquisition was on Frostbite. Dragon Age 2 was Lyceum engine. Dragon Age Origins was Eclipse. So
okay,
bigger, more of an
to do
effort
a collection, right?
to
They
bring
would
them all
have to
together.
replatform.
Right,
or do something.
update them from modern consoles.
Yeah, that would be a pain. Regardless,
It does look nice though.
looks really nice, and they've done a good job there. I haven't heard anybody talk about bugs. Boy, this would be really getting, if there was any bugs or crashes or anything, they'd really be getting raked over the coals, because that's a fun thing to rake people over the coals for as well. But yeah, it's good. Some of the detail is just really, really good. So here we're showing some of the main characters. This wizard woman in the middle, Nev is her name. She's got this, her one costume is really kind of cool. It's a sort of like almost like lace on the front of her costume. And when you zoom in, level of detail, when you zoom in, it's all of those ruffles there are full mesh and cloth simulation. So it's like, it's just super detailed. And that's in engine. When you're like walking around in the world, I saw it in a cutscene and I thought maybe they just up-resed it for the cutscene. No, that's all in engine when you zoom in and she's standing there. And it's all cloth sim as she moves. It all shifts and moves and all the layers and everything. So it's quite good. It's quite technically, objectively good. So let's talk about the rest of it. What you may or may not like, and what I ended up kind of really liking. Again, something I've talked about in the past is how much do I like just straight up story RPG games? And in general, I like them, but just in the same way that I don't read every fiction book that hits the New York Times bestseller list, I only really resonate with a subset of those kinds of games, because it's like a, you're picking a book off the shelf, and maybe that's a book you want to read today, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's a story you can get into, or maybe it's a fine story, but there's something else I'd rather read. This, I'm kind of liking the story. I like the antagonists, I like the characters, I like the mix of people, I like the trajectory of what's going on, and I like the ability to sort of like play amongst the story that's going on. The story does seem a bit linear in some ways. There are definitely decisions that matter, and I wish there wasn't.
Right.
Because they're just going to get dragged for whatever it is, because it's like a decision that doesn't matter enough, or, yes, it mattered, but in the end we had to fight the dragon anyway. Well, yeah, you have to fight. That's, it's a story. Everybody wants Baldur's Gate, where you could end the game within the first half hour of playing, because you made a choice that mattered, that ended the world. Is that useful though? Am I, like, if you say you were going to do a single playthrough and that's the decision you made, would then you just stop playing? Well, you played it and that was your story. Why are you dissatisfied? Because that's a dumb story. You got to the first encounter, you did something dumb, and the world ended. It's not. Yeah, okay. Can you believe it? Yeah, I guess. So go jump off the end of a bridge and pretend you killed yourself in this game, and then go back and play the rest of the actual story.
Well, I mean, I always think about this when people, want to be able to write their own endings. It's like when you read a book,
Or watch a
where you
movie.
can choose, the ones where you can choose your own ending are never the good ones. Those are
No.
like the cheap throwaway books and movies.
Right.
So games can be so powerful, but one of the ways they can be powerful is telling a really moving, compelling story.
Right.
And for that, the writers need to be in charge of the story.
Right. Yeah. You gotta meet up with that dragon at the end. You have to have a reason to fight the dragon, and hopefully a success condition when you do whatever you're gonna do to overcome the pinnacle. And I'm saying dragon because there are dragons in this. That's not actually what you're fighting against. So this is not spoilers. Because I'm only halfway through, probably at most even. But there is a little bit of, even narratively, you've got a lot of side missions and side stories that are very natural. And in some ways, it was kind of like hard for me to figure out what was a side story and what wasn't, and in kind of a good way. There's multiple factions which you're kind of aligned with, that are on your side to greater or lesser degrees. And you can get them on your side to a greater degree, and through that get like more gear and upgrades from them and that kind of thing. But you do that by doing some of the side quests, like in their city and with their people. And they might like drop you a note on a table and that says, oh, hey, somebody's been smuggling Gooba guys out of the docks. It'd be great if somebody could check that out. And you can if you want to, you don't have to. And I found myself doing some of those things, not knowing if it was like part of the main story or not. And I think you could, if you like looked in your journal, you can kind of see that, okay, I guess this isn't main story, but it kind of feels main story enough that I was having fun doing a couple of those side things too. So it's good. I like the characters. Each of the companions, and there's like whatever, eight of them, 7 of them, because you keep picking up more along the way. So you start with like 3 of them and you sort of pick up more. They all seem like actual people with their own thoughts and feelings. And then they did a couple really interesting things. So here was, I bet, a decision that mattered. I should have, I guess, gone back and tried it a different way. There was a decision very early where you need to decide to take one of the companions that you need to take with you. Well, I took this companion, and this companion got beat up pretty bad, and then spent the rest of the kind of like the rest of the game so far for me into 14 hours with visible bruises on their face healing up from getting beat up in this instance, which I thought was interesting. And also just the, again, graphically, I thought it was well rendered and clever. Just like really bad and limping around. And then like the next chapter, a little bit better. And the next chapter, a little bit better. It did feel immersive. Voice acting is really good. The dialogue, I thought it was fine. I didn't notice it. Now I've since, in the last day, watched a couple of videos where people are talking about stuff they don't like about the dialogue. If you were playing in one sitting and you're playing like 6 or 8 hours in one sitting, which a lot of people who are reviewing stuff do, then yes, you will notice, boy, they keep telling me this same thing over and over again. I didn't notice that because I was playing like a half hour here, a half hour there. And yes, they keep saying the dragons, don't forget the dragons are coming. Yeah, okay. If they say that quite often, it's okay. I didn't notice it because again, I'm not sitting down for 6-8 hours playing it straight. Other people have said maybe the dialogue is a little too much sort of observatory exposition. It's just like explaining things that you as the character kind of know already or should know, kind of like talking down to you a little bit, like oh, these are demons. We must fight these demons. Yeah, well, this is like the 5th hour of us fighting 10 packs of demons. Again, I didn't notice it, but I've heard other people say that. And sure, maybe it's not the best, most perfect writing of dialogue, the most subtle of all, dialogue and story, but it's still good, and it's still fine. I mean, I don't compare Avengers to Godfather and say, yeah, the Avengers movie was crap because look at this dialogue. They're saying, here comes the bad guy. And in Godfather, the writing is much more subtle. Well, yeah, it's not that. It's a different kind of product.
I mean, saying things over and over again is kind of a hallmark of games. But I can see where really deep story progression, you wouldn't want to hear it as much. But yeah, you have to make it work for a lot of different people.
Yes. Yeah. And I find, that I notice it in books just as much.
Yeah, right.
And I did not feel like I was noticing it here. So I was kind of surprised to hear that.
Sometimes in books, I appreciate it because I needed it because it's been a while since I was reading that book.
Right. Because I'm not a reviewer who's sitting down at, in 8-hour stints over the course of 3 days to finish a game.
I know. Sometimes I have to play games instead of finish my book.
Right.
Life is rough.
Character customization. So some of the other things I kind of had fun with, both on like the fun side, and then the couple things that I sort of like smile and laugh at, and don't mind, but the glitchy side, not glitchy side, but to me the points of friction in my mind, which is character customization, which they have a lot of character customization. There's a lot of sliders, and they do this thing where you can choose like 3 different faces, right? And then they put the triangle on the screen, and you can move the dot between any of the 3 to like blend them together, kind of thing. In theory, to give you like this infinite number of possible faces that you can come out of it with. Well, it's not really that. All of the faces are very stylized, and it was difficult for me to get any kind of face that I was sort of going for. But it's fine, whatever. So I did make a character, and then in game they let you change it pretty much any time. So as soon as I got to the point where I had the facility to change it, I did tweak my face a little bit more. So that was fine. They do a lot, and this is what some of the trolls are going after. They do a lot to make it very accommodating and flexible to skin color and race and gender and anything you could think of like that, which is I'm cool with, and that was very cool. than they do, which chafes me in particular. In every game, you can be any age you want between 20 and 25. It's like, come on. I could be like any race, any color, any gender, any hairstyle. Well, hairstyles have a little bit of a problem too, but all of these things, any kind of like tattoos and scars, and any age between 20 and 25. And and then it doesn't come up a lot. It's much worse in other games, but there are a couple people, a couple conversations where people, refer to you as kid. And no matter how like old you try to make your character, how much I've like roughed up his face and I gave him some scars, and I gave him the only complexion that kind of like made him look older, which was weathered, just so he didn't look like he was 20. They still call you kid. So fine. I guess you can be anything you want as long as you're a child.
I guess maybe it's a story thing that you need to be an inexperienced character.
Yep. Yeah. I think you could still cleverly get around that, and you could do a little bit of more of a self-insert of the player. And a lot of players these days, I don't know if you know this, Sema, but a lot of players these days are not, between 20 and 25.
Well, I think in general, sort of ageism is the accepted ism.
Mm-hmm.
Making fun of old people is, people feel that's acceptable.
Even this guy who's on the screen, Verygood, he's like the older mentor that's in the opening chapters. And, sort of like coaches you as you sort of go forward a little bit. He's like the old man, and he looks like he's 30.
Right.
He looks like Thorin Oakenshield from the Hobbit movies. But yeah, so that's fine. And then the hairstyles is the other thing. You can have like, braids and top knots and, all of these different kinds of hairstyles and cuts and shaves and fades and everything. And you can be bald, and you can either be bald or you can have a hairline that starts at 1 inch above your eyebrows. Those are your two options. Either completely bald or a hairline that starts 1 inch above your eyebrows, and then does wild things after that. But there's no like, again, I know this is a me thing. And that's why I rolled my eyes, and it's perfectly fine. Yes, I realize I have a receding hairline, and no game lets me have that.
You're skirting the real issue here, which is, can you adjust the size of your
junk?
Yes.
Yes, you kind of can. You can adjust it minutely. It's your bulge. They'll let you do that. You can and that's it. It's not like you can ever be nude. So it's just how much of a bulge is there. So yes, they kind of let you do that. And it's one of those things where in other games where they even like Cyberpunk 2077, where you can make a detailed model of your chunk. You never see it in the game. So it's like, why am I doing this?
It's for the character creation part of the game.
I guess somebody has.
I know people do play the character creation for hours.
I did spend quite a long time. I spent at least 35 minutes in the character creator, because I also wanted to play with all the different options and see what they were doing. The other thing that bugged me was like your eyes. You can change the tilt. You can do all the sliders on each eye separately, where you could have one eye that's, do like a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, where one eye is raised and, raised up permanently. But you can't change the size of your eyes, and they're big. So I could not, again, this is me trying to what I do in character creators is I try to make the character look as much like me as I can. And I've done that. I've put together montages of me trying to make characters look like me. It doesn't look at all like me in this game. It's got these giant eyes, these giant bug anime eyes. It's got a block head, and that's the closest I could come. Maybe that is what I look like. Do I have a giant block head and big anime eyes? I don't know. It just seems so weird that you can't change the size of your eyes. Oh, and the nose was a little bit weird too, which I thought was a stylistic choice of theirs, which I didn't necessarily mind, and it seemed sort of artistic, which was I could never get my face to be symmetrical. Not that I necessarily cared or wanted it to be, but then my nose, because I'm like sliding these faces around, and no matter what faces I picked, my nose was always a little crooked. And then you can go into the nose editor and there's a slider for crookedness, and it would just make it more crooked or as crooked as it started, which I thought was weird. And maybe, again, part of like fitting into that style of the world, and maybe stylistically, almost no one actually has a symmetrical face unless you're like a Hollywood star. So maybe they tried for that. Maybe they went to that and they said, no, we don't want anyone and any of the characters to have this, the perfect anime style, movie star Brad Pitt symmetrical face. Even if they look like Angelina Jolie, with a Brad Pitt face would be disturbing. But yeah, so, and then the last one, why do I did spend a lot of time, again, because I try to make it look like me, because the last thing you can pick, which is kind of cool, you can pick between 4 voices. There's 2 female voices and 2 male voices for the main character. And you can pick any one, no matter what you look like, which, again, that's cool. But the 2 male voices were basically either Sean Bean, or, like 19-year-old boy, child. So I started with Sean Bean, but it just became too much for me. And, because everything, again, they keep calling me kid, and I keep going, yes, but one does not simply walk into the dragon age. Like, okay, that wasn't fitting. So I switched to the other voice, and it's growing on me a little bit, but that one is not super youngsterish, but definitely quite a bit younger. It did make me think that it would be a lot of work. They did have to do all of the voice lines for the main character 4 times at a minimum. I didn't even think there's probably multiple languages. So maybe they've got 64 voice actors for the main characters. I bet there are multiple languages. Let's see, other characters to wrap up with, not characters, categories of stuff. The fighting is interesting. I think it's fine. It's a little more arcadey than I like. And it's the downside for me is it's very dodge block oriented. I felt like I'm spending, especially on some of the bigger fights, 90% of my time dodging and blocking. So I had to learn, which I prefer not to do, how to dodge and block. In fact, because I'm playing a rogue character, and there's like 4 classes you can play. Because I'm playing a rogue character, if I wasn't dodging, or if I wasn't blocking in particular, because when you block, it actually activates your abilities. So you need to be blocking, but you can only block at the right time. And then you run into a bunch of these enemies where there's like a telegraph. There's this sort of like gold glow that appears, in front of you when it's time to block. And then you need to time your block for when the enemy's hit actually lands. And it feels satisfying when you sort of get the hang of it. But then you run into these groups of enemies, and sometimes it's multiples of these enemies that are unblockable. So then you can only be dodging and rolling. And I've got like these, at one point I'm like trying to teach myself to block so that I can activate my necrotic abilities and blah, blah, blah. And I'm realizing in this fight that I can't block. There's nothing I can block. It just like turns red every time, and they light up red, which means I learned, and I actually had to like look up, why can't I block these? Oh, well, when it turns red, when the enemies turn red, that means you can't block them. Oh, okay. So then I'm needed to not. But I've heard other people kind of say that the combat is boring. Maybe because you do have to dodge block a lot. They've kind of felt like that was boring. I thought there was enough depth for me, though, in terms of the abilities I could choose. And then you get 1 to 2 companions that are fighting with you the whole time. And they have abilities. They have like 3 abilities. And when you hit tab, it kind of freezes time, so you can pick abilities from your companions and maybe multiple of them. And they have this system called synergy, which basically allows you to chain them together. So one It's I forgot what they called it. It's like trigger and execute. Those aren't the words they used, but one ability might set up like set up a condition, and the other ability execute. That person could block. So they're fighting this dragon, and they could block. It's a mage. They have some kind of shield. I'm watching this dragon fight. I fought this dragon, and I did not like this. This one fight I did not like. And the way, I don't know who, this person's overpowered. I don't know how they're able to fight this fight like they're fighting, because this is not how this fight's even supposed to go. Oh, this is even the Dragon Age, the BioWare video, the play video of this fight. You can't do any damage to this dragon. You're supposed to be only like hitting, you see how its legs are lit up purple? It also has like a stun bar. And if you fill up that purple stun bar by hitting its weak points and, doing concussive damage to it, then you can like stun it. And if it's a regular enemy, then you can do an execute. And the executes are pretty violent. I've got like, I'm dual wielding daggers. So I like jam both of them into their chest, and like blood flies everywhere, and I do an execute, which is again satisfying if you're playing a roguelike character. But this fight, what they showed there, I finished the fight, and the dragon was like at 95% health. You're not supposed to DPS down the dragon. You're only supposed to be doing its, filling up its resolve bar or whatever that is. Anyway, so in that way, I had to just like be dodging 90% of the time when I'm fighting this dragon, and then whack, whack, whack a couple times, dodge, dodge, dodge again. Okay, I'm dodging again. My companions were kind of useless, so I wasn't all that fond of that fight. I tried to be ranged for a while. I wanted to be the ranged rogue, which is, but I don't know what that was called. It's like ranger bow person. I think when you're higher in level, you're getting points that unlock more abilities. And then there's an ability that allows you to like lock on and slow time and those kinds of things. I think when you get to that point, that might be more satisfying. In the early game, it's definitely not, because the enemies are like dodging out of the way at range. So you're like trying to aim at them and shoot them and do headshots. And the smart enemies are dodging out of the way. And I felt it, I ended up just respecking, which you can do anytime, which is nice. I respect to just be stabby, and I just ran up and just started wailing on everything then, which I don't normally do. I don't normally play melee characters if I can get away with range, but I felt like I just ended up feeling like I couldn't get away with ranged for this. But yeah, so that's, but it was still fun. And I didn't mind sort of being forced to learn the dodging and blocking. I would have just gone through the whole game not doing that at all if I could have gotten away with it. But then sort of once I was forced to be learning that, I got into it. And any other little side things as I'm wrapping this up, or any questions you have while I think of any side things to wrap it up with, Sema?
Is there romance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've kind of ignored it, but there's, when you get the dialogue choices with your companions, one of them has a heart on it. So I think, and like all the companions have given me an option to have a flirt, and it's kind of like the flirt dialogue choice. It hasn't gone anywhere here in the first 14 hours. Maybe because I'm a bad person to my companions, or we're not spending enough time with them or whatever. But yeah, I think there is. You also get like a little bit of a base. So there you sort of like almost like a pocket dimension. And then there's this base where your companions hang out, and you get a room, and you can like put some of your trophies in there. And that's where you can like do your, change your cosmetics. And there's a cosmetic system, costumes. You can hide your head slot. You can do that kind of stuff right out of the gate. Change it as much as you want. That's kind of cool. There's like little stuff you like loot everywhere in the world that you can pick up. Some of it's like crafting materials. Some of it's just, some of it was weird. It was like a delicious potato. And it's just like trash loot that you could sell for gold. It's called like a treasure, but one of the treasures was a potato. Like, oh, okay. Although I think I was in a prison at the time, which maybe for a prison in context, if you found a delicious potato in this prison, this demon torture prison, maybe that would be a wonderful treasure. So there's that. It's not overly big. There's no like, there is a quote unquote crafting where you're taking the materials you picked up and you're going to a table and being able to like do some minor upgrades on gear you've picked up, but doesn't really feel like crafting very much. Not that I'm asking for crafting, so that's fine. It's just they don't have a crafting system. They don't have a building system. It's not like a survival game. It's a story game. And it's very story. Especially in the early game, I felt like it was like, 5 minutes of cutscene. Very good cutscene again. I'm getting into the story. 5 minutes of cutscene, run around, 2 more minutes of cutscene, fight one enemy, 5 more minutes of cutscene. It's like I kind of want to just like go out and stab some things. Can I go do that now? No, we gotta tell you some more stuff. But I didn't mind the story parts again, so it was fine. Objectively, good game, as I'm saying. And subjectively, for me, I got a kick out of it. I enjoyed it. This is, again, I think it's done well. Am I sad that I can't be more of an ass in this game? That I don't get the choices to, say F you to every companion and every person I meet in the game? I don't mind that because I didn't want to say F you to them anyway.
You don't miss it.
I didn't notice that I couldn't because I wasn't looking for that, which apparently some people really are. And that's not something I typically look for. And I don't know if they actually, I don't know. I think some people actually want to be that person. They wish they were that person or are that person. Some people just want that to be an option, whether they want to do it or not. It's like, can I kill every person in Baldur's Gate? If I can't kill every person that's there, well, then what good is it? Then it's not an RPG. So fine, it's a story, and it's an interactive story, and I'm enjoying the interactive story.
I mean, I wonder if part of that comes from sort of the boundaries blurring between different types of games, because you can do that in shooters and you can do that in MMOs, but something that's story driven like this, you are not the end all be all of who your character is, like you are in
Right. Yeah.
in games where you can. You're playing a character who has a role in the story. You're not making up a character like you might be in a shooter or an MMO or
Yes.
a survival game.
Yeah. Exactly. And in a Dungeons and Dragons RPG tabletop game where you're like making up who you are and you're deciding to ruin your DM's day because the DM is saying, well, the bartender's got something to tell you about this dragon that's attacking. No, we're going to burn down the tavern.
Right.
And the DM rolls their eyes and says, okay, roll for initiative. You burn down the tavern. And now what do? Oh, well, now we look for a dragon to fight. You have no idea where any dragons are. You can wander, aimlessly for the next couple hours tonight, or we could maybe start another game.
Right.
There was someone who was about to tell you where it is, but you decided that you didn't take my strong hint. So fine. If I was a DM, that's the way I would play it. It's like, oh, well, I'm gonna pickpocket the blah blah blah, and they get okay. You sure you want to do that? Fine. All right, you do, and now the whole town hates you, and you have to leave town, and it's farmland for 50 miles in every direction. How many meters? Roll to see how many meters you move this turn. Can we go back to town? Nope. That's it. Do you want to do something else tonight? Should we start a new game? This is what you chose. Live with your choices. Yeah. So play it if you want. If this sounds like the kind of game you want to experience, play it. If you want like a survival game, or you want a sandbox, or you want to play Baldur's Gate again, go play Baldur's Gate again, because that's cool too. You don't have to like this game. And if you don't like this game, you don't have to play it also. even if you're a content creator, if there's a game that you know you won't like, you don't have to play it. Just because a AAA studio puts out a game doesn't mean that you have to play it and talk about how much you don't like it, even though you knew you wouldn't like it. You don't have to. But I think a lot of people will like this game. It's well rendered. So that is that. Let's talk about some of the other things we've been doing too.
It looks like meat's back on our menu, boys.
No way. God. Finally.
Oh, I kind of like the magical bread.
All right, Sema, what else have you been playing?
I've spent a little bit more time on the public test server for Star Wars: The Old Republic 7.6 that's upcoming, messing around with their dynamic events, which is an activity, a new activity system that they're putting in the game, and it's kind of like, I would say, kind of like world quests, but they have a kind of a short fuse on them. Like they crop up and then they're there for 30 minutes. But it's not like a FOMO kind of a thing, because if you're not playing at that moment, when you do log in, there'll be others that have cropped up.
Yeah.
What I've found for myself after I lost track of time and ended up like not finishing one several different times because I wasn't paying attention, it got better at paying attention. So there is that. Like maybe there's a way they can have a little forgiveness on when the 30 minutes is up.
Yeah, I started a couple fights, especially if it's like, hey, there's a big wampa that's misbehaving. Go fight it. And I start the fight, and it's only like a 2-minute fight, but there was only 1 minute left in the event. And after 60 seconds, it disappears in the middle of the fight. It's like, oh.
Right. As much as you think you want to, you cannot fit 2 minutes into 1 minute.
No. Now, as you said, though, they're sort of small, and you're not investing a lot of time. So even when I got burned by blowing the timer on a couple, it was fine. And
it's going to be interesting to see what the rewards are going to be, because I think it's also interesting the way this activity kind of dovetails with the other two big. If you leave out leveling is a huge activity, and the story is a huge activity, the loving story. But like for after that, you have Conquest, we'll have this, and we have Galactic Seasons, and they kind of overlap each other. Like while you're doing this, you'll find that you also meet some Conquest objectives, or you might meet a particular Galactic Seasons objective if you work on it. Like for instance, sometimes a Galactic Seasons objective will be to kill X number of NPCs with your companion set in a certain mode. Well, you can run around doing these with your companion set in that mode, and then you'll be making dynamic events, and you'll be doing Galactic Seasons, and you'll be doing defeat enemies for Conquest. So it's kind of a fun, kind of double, even triple dipping kind of thing, which I always love. I love it when you get the opportunity to move several bars at once, or 2 bars at once. More than 2, it's even better.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of times there'll be a conquest objective, like a daily objective or a season objective, just to kill 100 things.
Right.
And you can go to a place where there's a fair density of mobs and grind and kill your 100 things. Or you can like go to these things, and you're right. Then you're ticking off 2 boxes. You're getting a little bonus, and it's less mindless and less grindy. Yeah, that is not a bad use for this. I think we were asking last week, or I was asking, what is the use of these? And that is a fine use of it. So you're right.
Another thing I've thought of too is like since they're like little morsels of gaming, really. Some of them are more than others, but some of them are very brief. If you just need to kill 5 minutes, you could hop in and do 1 or 2 of these.
Which I've kind of been doing a little bit. Yeah. Coffee and contemplation time in the morning. To get the achievement on the PTS, you need to do 100 of these while the PTS is up, which is about a month still, I think, or at least a few weeks more.
I hope so. I'm about halfway done.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm only about a third, maybe closer to halfway.
I do have a little bit of, you know, I want to get it done panic going on because but that's me because I started it, so I want to be able to finish it.
Agreed. And they haven't set the end date of when this is
Right.
going away.
Right. And it is a test server, so
Yep.
they are going to be taking it up and down. So that's given.
Yeah.
But I like the look of it. I like how it's a brand new and rather extensive system. Like for a number of years when we talk about our predictions for this game, I've been saying, and we're going to get a new system. And this year we've gotten 2. Because we
True.
got the Bessie, what do we call that one?
Right.
Venture.
Venture. You're right. Yeah, we have.
And we're getting this, yeah.
It's expanding those out. That's good.
And I mean, speaking of moving bars, I can bring Bessie with me and move that bar also on these, which I haven't done because we're on the public test server, so it doesn't really matter. But
yeah, I guess that's true too. Interesting.
So the things that we have run into that I don't like are, it's very unclear to me if you're meant to be able to do these with a bunch of people or not.
Yes.
Like some of them seem to work flawlessly we had 8 people. Others of them seem like it seemed random whether everyone got credit or didn't get credit for things. We played one where you turned into a mouse droid and had to do some stuff. The 5th person in our group had difficulty completing it. I don't know if it was because of this. I don't know. It might have been something else.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised though that I usually hate with like a white hot rage the quest where you have to be a mouse droid, but this one I did not hate, and it was actually kind of cute.
There are a fair number of like the cute funny ones.
Yes. Yeah.
I did one that had that surprised me in 2 ways. One, it was cute. I was on Hoth and there was like little snow cats out there and there was like little snow kittens and they were chewing on the wires at this power plant. So you run over there and a little extra action button pops up where you just scare them away. And then if you scare them away, there's a chance that the mom cat, the big ice cat, comes out of the ground and attacks you. And if you fight it and you fight it for a little bit, it limps away, it licks its paw and then runs off. So you don't get to kill the mom, which I think was nice. But when I completed that one, and this was a surprise, and this was something that a couple people kind of had asked for, I got a loot bag for that one, and hovering over the loot bag, it says, this has a chance to drop the snow kitten pet.
Right.
If
I'm one of those people, I've been saying, this would be a fantastic thing if you had activities out in the world that had a low chance or any chance of dropping interesting things that we... Decos,
cosmetics, pets, throw all of those things in. I don't care about the end game currency because it's not the top currency. It's not the end game and the gear currency. It's the second tier down currency, which we all have thousands of and don't need more of.
Right. We're dreaming up ways to spend it.
Right. And they're only giving us like 30 or 50 fragments or whatever. So yeah. What about that lair boss, Sema?
Oh yeah, we did try the lair boss, but they fixed a bunch of things that we were running into with it. So hopefully we'll get a chance to try it post fixes this week, like tomorrow night.
Yes, we went in with 7, and we only went in with 7 players and did not finish it. But
the feedback that we're starting to get from people who are streaming the fight is that it's a lot more like a fight and less like a exercise in what?
Yeah. We had videos of groups that were basically just brute force overpowering everything. And they had like a good class makeup to basically just have a bunch of cleave damage and stack everything up and brute force overpower, do like 5 DPS, 2 healers and 1 tank. And it's not meant to be done that way. It's meant to have a tank swap, and it's meant to not have to like brute force. You're supposed to be able to swap off. And so it's supposed to be a more balanced encounter. And the patch notes that they put out said, here's how we're going to turn it. Here's how we're tuning it up to make it a balanced encounter. So good. PTS is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's serving its purpose. So yeah, that's good. Anything else you've been playing?
I have been playing WoW. We're still doing the 20th anniversary activities. I'm very close to having enough of that particular currency, though, to buying everything I want, which is substantially less than everything. But I've gotten the outfits that I want, except for one, and I've gotten the pets. And there's a mount too that I'll probably get, but I can just coast through this anniversary now and use it for whatever is good for me. I don't have to like be worried about getting enough currency. I've also been running the Headless Horseman fight every day on multiple characters because I'm trying to get a pet to drop from that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good way for me to spend my time though, because it's reportedly very, very, very low drop. And so a bunch of people are posting that they've done it like 300, 400, 500 times and haven't gotten the pet.
Oh, that's a little
So
nutty.
this is like old school. So we'll see.
Interesting. And then the rating, how's the rating going?
So the rating's going great. We did get an extra boss down on heroic last week, and a lot of attempts.
Oh,
on
Lucy
the
got
next
the mount. What do you say to Lucy? Because she got the mount. You say, good for you.
She did get the Headless Horseman mount, which I think she might have been the last person on our raid team to get it. I don't know. That might be a leap on my part, but a lot of people got it last year.
Nice. It seemed like it was dropping a lot last year from what I heard. And just, was it
Yeah,
just like
although
they tuned it back down this
last
year?
year, this time we were playing Classic, so maybe our experience was they were trying to move people along in Classic. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yep. So tonight, though, we're probably going to go and do Black Temple, which is a time walking raid back from the Burning Crusade times. So this week is a Burning Crusade time walking week, which means the Black Temple raid is tuned like a normal raid. When we did it last time around, it didn't seem as hard as a normal raid, but maybe because we know all the fights.
Yeah.
Because they're, 12 years old, but it's still.
You are from the future.
We are from the future. And yes, and for us, I've been playing Classic. Burning Crusade wasn't that long ago. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, time walking, raiding, anniversary. The other thing that people are using the anniversary stuff for is leveling alts. I have been thinking about leveling a couple alts just to get them to a point so that if later on in life I decide I want to gear them up, then I've done this part of it.
Yeah.
If I feel like it.
Yeah. Well, cool. I played one other thing that's new, and I won't talk about it a lot this week, but I will talk about it in future weeks. The Alpha 2 of Ashes of Creation is now open, and it's only open on weekends. So last weekend I played it only probably for about an hour or 2 hours. And it's interesting. They're really going for, and we'll see how it goes. This is going to be years before this comes out. They're really going for the old school MMO design and feel. And I think, bold move. We'll see how much it sticks, and maybe it will. And maybe a lot of people get into it. And the people that do get into it, this is something that you brought up that I think is interesting, might be a new generation of players, because what they're going for is the leveling is very, very slow. It's kind of like traditional tab targeting. It's kind of, you have to grind to get every single level. Playing through the story missions is not enough. You have to grind to craft anything. You have to go out and be gathering for a long time to get enough materials to craft anything. You have to grind a bunch of mobs. And then the extra layer is the only efficient way to really do that, and still grinding a lot, is with a group. And you get relatively significant bonus. You could look at it as you get relatively significant bonuses for grouping, or you could look at it, which is more what it feels like to me, as a relatively significant penalty for not grouping. So you might be grinding for, 100 hours to get to level 25, and this is the number I've heard. 100 hours to get to level 25, which is the cap in the game, I think is what it is right now. Maybe I'm got the numbers a little bit off, but doing it in a group, but you might have to do it for like 300 hours if you do it solo, or 400 hours. That sounds like it feels bad to me, but it wouldn't feel bad. And this is something where we sort of had a potential epiphany. The reason this is old school, like an old school model, and the reason it worked for a lot of people when they first started playing like Classic WoW, when Classic WoW first came out, or EverQuest, is a lot of people when they were playing that were like preteen. They were like tweens. They were like 13 years old, 14 years old, coming home after school, getting together with their friends, playing for 4 hours a night with their friends every single night. And then, grinding and playing a long time and getting together in groups and go and find some place to grind and getting in the groove of it and goofing off with your friends. That works in that model. And it felt really good for those of us that sort of grew up doing that at those times. And you might be looking back with rose-colored glasses and saying, I want that feeling again. Well, the reason you had that feeling was because you got home from school, you had no responsibilities, and you spent 4 hours a night with your friends in ICQ, and that's what you did. Now, the reality is, gamers in general, the profile of what a gamer is very different these days. And I don't think you're going to get a lot of people that have a group of friends that's getting together for 4 hours a night of the average gamer. But if they're trying to be niche gamers and they're going after Gen Alpha, maybe there will be this whole new generation of Gen Alpha players that play this game in the way that, people who back in the EverQuest and WoW Classic first days were playing. And then what will that lead to, Sema? You tell me. What was your hypothesis, which I thought was brilliant?
I was saying that maybe it's a positive way for a preteen to spend time because, you're focused on it, you're socializing. It's not the same as spending hours on your phone with Insta or TikTok or whatever. I feel like I learned at a young age from MMOs some kinds of lessons like tiny efforts do add up.
Yes.
Nobody in real life taught me that. MMOs taught me that. It's
Right.
worth doing little things because they do add up over time. It seems simple, right? But I did not learn that growing up.
And it's worth focusing solely on one thing for a long time and not having to like flip through your TikTok feed once every 3 seconds to get the dopamine hits going through your brain.
So maybe this is
going to save Gen Alpha. This is going to save the world.
I don't know if they need saving, but
yeah,
we're here for you.
Yeah. So interesting. I'll talk about it more in future weeks as I play it. We'll see where it goes. As we are saying, it's going to be years before it comes out. So don't feel like you're missing out on anything. And you have to pay money to get into the alphas at this point, like $100 minimum. It's not worth $100 right now because it's also very buggy. A lot of things just weren't working.
Like they're going after kids.
Yeah. Well, not right now for the testing. They're going after a lot of people hearkening back to those days and then feeling like it. Right now, the people that are giving the feedback and saying, this is great. I just don't think that those people long-term would be able to sort of sustain.
I don't know. It kind of depends.
You're going to have to get a new generation of people.
It depends on if it's fun. The 300 hours are fun because I know people who've spent 300 hours playing Free Cell.
Yep. But if every time you
thing.
wanted to go play Free Cell, you had to like go find, like 7 other people or like random pugs.
It depends on how that process works, right?
And like that's a criticism. Right now, I've heard, and maybe it's because it's an alpha. I've heard that that's one of the challenges right now too, is sometimes you get a group, even in the alpha, when a bunch of people are like playing in there on a weekend. Sometimes you can get a group, sometimes you can't. And if you can't, well, then you're sort of SOL, which feels bad. Well, we'll see. Yeah, We got years to figure it out, but I'll track it a little bit, talk about it as it continues. All right, we got a couple news items too. Let's transition.
Good news, everyone.
Just to finish this off, keep us updated and remind us of what's coming out on the release roadmap. The one article that I connects to what we talked about in the first half, Dragon Age Veilguard, I thought was interesting to hear. And then this is where you got, Sema, you dug into this a little bit more about the engines and how Mass Effect worked and that kind of thing was dovetailed off of this. But the key summary out of this article was Dragon Age is a good thing. They're happy with it. And they're kind of done. They're not planning like a big roadmap of expansions and doing all this stuff with Dragon Age because, and this is potentially positive for a lot of fans of BioWare in general, and especially fans of Mass Effect, they're shifting the team and their development to the next Mass Effect. Mass Effect is good content.
This guy that in the interview with Rolling Stone, John Epler, who's the creative director of Dragon Age: The Veilguard, it felt like it was a little bit of a misstep, or at least a learning lesson, the forays they made into multiplayer, both with Anthem and Dragon Age. And I feel like they're focusing on the sort of BioWare strength of the single player RPG, which also might be a reason why they're not that interested in doing expansions for the Veilguard, because the next one will be another game on its own, possibly, as opposed to like coming out with a multiplayer version.
Why isn't Dragon Age getting a bunch of brownie points for no seasons, no cash shop, no half of a chapter of the story? It's a concise, consolidated RPG that you can play from start to finish that's not buggy from the start. It seems like, it should be getting like 10 out of 10s just for that alone. Because if it did any of those things, it would also be getting minus points. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I forgot about that. I didn't even look at it from that perspective. It's like, I feel like with a lot of these reviews, I feel like it's like 3 strikes is like the reviewers and the gamers they give it 3 strikes. And those 3 strikes could be anything, any little thing in the game. Like me with the, I can't make my eyes smaller. Strike 1. The voice is too deep. Strike 2. And the pacing is, range doesn't work for it. Strike 3. All right, it's a terrible game. And then everybody's got 3 strikes that are different. And then everybody makes a video about their 3 strikes. Whereas it could be a brilliant, wonderful game. Every movie that's released can have a CinemaSins video made about it. That doesn't mean they're bad movies. You don't have to do 3 strikes. They all have strikes. They all have 3 strikes.
It also isn't necessarily a bad thing that they're focusing now on Mass Effect, because
no,
especially big studios or studios with lots of locations or fingers in many different pies, they move teams around all the time.
And they should. And it's
Right.
nice that they have this ability to switch over to something different and not have to sustain on a single title, which is why you have models like live service and expansions and chapters and battle passes and things like that, because you're trying to stick a team to a single title that you just released. Yeah, that's a good point. And it also allows them to take one team and be agile with it and not have to hire 1,000 people and then lay them off when things don't work out for one of the titles. So people should be giving them brownie points for that too, but they're not. All right. Another little article that caught my eye that I thought was fun and nice because it's relevant to our interests is Games Radar put out a 10 best MMORPGs to play in 2024. And some of our favorite MMOs are on this list. In fact, multiple that we play, including some of our favorites. Fallout 76 is number 10. I thought that was fun to see because I like Fallout 76. I'm not playing it right now, but this game was not liked when it first came out and is now a good game, and I agree. Lost Ark, I thought people really didn't like this, but enough people probably like it still. Must be. Same with this and Black Desert. A lot of people are still playing those games, and if you like the more actiony MMORPG, Lost Ark fits that. Black Desert Online.
This guy
fits the
who wrote
grindy.
this, Josh West, he's not saying these are the most popular. He's saying these are worth playing.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
he's probably right.
Yeah, I think he's right.
And they continue to maintain Black Desert Online. Like, I thought Black Desert Online for a while was kind of like past its prime and done, but they continue to maintain it, and a lot of people really continue to play it in an interesting way that makes it make sense. Number 7, surprise, surprise. To me, it was a surprise because I feel like it gets passed over. Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Yeah.
With, as you said, a nice little blurb, which is
Yes.
accurate.
Yeah, it is accurate. Yeah, so like here's the blurb. With 8 classes, each with their own complete narrative journey, a dialogue system that draws from the success of Mass Effect, abilities across the light and dark alignment, and combat that will evoke strong memories of KOTOR, Star Wars: The Old Republic remains an absolute riot. It's fun.
Which is great. Number 6, which I don't think would be a surprise to anybody that knows about MMOs, is Guild Wars 2. Yep, it's always there. Number 5.
Yeah, it's a great game. It definitely has a following.
Yep. Even though it's older, it does a lot of things really well in terms of horizontal progression.
And because of their art style, it's really timeless.
Yes. Yeah, which is why stylized can be really useful. EVE Online at number 5.
That surprised me.
Yeah, I haven't played it in probably 10 years though, and I played it a lot. I played it for like a couple years pretty heavily. I just think unless the community has changed, was just very toxic of a community.
I've never played it, but I don't consider it an option for me because I feel like there's a huge learning curve, and if I went through that huge learning curve, I'm not confident that at the end I would like the game because of what you just said.
Yeah. But maybe it's changed again. 10 years, a lot can change. If I don't get literal ASCII swastikas in general chat when I enter a system anymore these days, well, maybe that's a positive. Maybe. Number 4, which continues to surprise me also, although I know a ton of people love this, is old school RuneScape. I've never played RuneScape. I've never played old school RuneScape. And I keep thinking I should, just because it
is a phenomenon.
It is. You're exactly right.
We should take a weekend sometime soon and just play RuneScape and check it out.
Yeah, you're right. We should. Another game on the good list that the next 3 are no surprise, and we like them as well. And a lot of our guild, Actus, plays this all the time. Elder Scrolls, number 3. Number 2, World of Warcraft. And number 1, Final Fantasy. You might be able to debate the order of those, even if you were doing this like I don't think it's necessarily in order of popularity, but it's not that far from it for those 3. I think those sort of are the kings right now, in a fun way. So yeah, that was a good article.
I just noticed that he has a subtitle on this article called "From World of Warcraft to League of Legends: The Best MMORPGs Are Living Worlds You Create with Others." League of Legends is not on there anywhere. It's also not really considered an MMO, but
no, they might be making an MMO out of League of Legends. In fact,
yeah, there was some noise about that.
Right. In the past week, there was another hint or allusion by one of the game directors from Riot, right? Yeah, Riot. That's League of Legends.
Yes.
That
Right.
it's still alive, that it still exists, and they are working on it. We all thought that maybe it was dead.
Supposedly what Ghostcrawler was working on before he went off to start his own company.
Yeah. And Ghostcrawler's got another MMO that they're working on, trying to do some interesting different things, sort of like innovate, which is, again, is dangerous, but could be really fun and interesting. We'll see where that goes. And then what did I have? Oh, the last thing, just to get relevant to my interests, even if not everybody else's, is Ubisoft wasn't all that happy with the sales of Star Wars Outlaws, even though it was well received by the people that did play it. And people who actually like games liked it, like me. And in fact, I still like Star Wars Outlaws, probably even a little better than Dragon Age. And I like Dragon Age. When I was playing Dragon Age and thinking about story RPGs, it made me want to go back to Star Wars Outlaws and finish that, which I haven't yet. Anyway, the little blurb was they swapped out their game director. They have a new creative director, Drew Reckner. And one of Drew's comments were they're going to continue to work on this game. And one of the things that they may do is some revamp that responds to player concerns or, player wishes for how the game worked. And you what was your guess that they were going after?
Well, I was wondering if they were making it a little bit more combat oriented because of the complaints that it was too stealth oriented.
Mm-hmm. I didn't mind it, and I typically don't like stealth games. I didn't think it was overly done, and that was the world you were living in, and it felt right. However,
I mean,
sometimes it's nice to just whip out a blaster and just shoot.
But I think I'm kind of disappointed if I feel like there should be room for every uniqueness in a game instead of every game sort of being whittled down till it's got all the same main features of every other game.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see what Drew's take is on it. Drew may reel it back into the same as every other game.
Yeah.
You could stealth, but hardly anyone does, and everybody just goes in blasters blazing. So anyway, I started blasting. So we'll see. Then a quick rundown of release date news. Dishonored and Guardians of the Galaxy. This is just a reminder for everyone. There are free games, Amazon Prime free games coming out in November. Dishonored and Guardians of the Galaxy are two of them. Guardians of the Galaxy is definitely one I'm going to pick up. I think you might need to get it off the Epic Store, but it's a Prime free game coming out the second week in November 14th, I believe, or further. No, Dishonored is the 7th, the week of the 7th. Super Meat Boy, the week of the 21st. Elite Dangerous, the week of the 27th. Oh, so which of the weeks? Gonna have to find it. Anyway, one of the weeks in December, in theory, the Guardians of the Galaxy game should be coming out, which by all accounts was a really good RPG as well. Don't forget to be checking for those free games. If you're part of Epic, Prime free games, there's just a lot of places to get a bunch of really cool free games. And then we've got Steam sales all the time. That's just a fun thing to remember. The other one that keeps catching my eye, I probably won't play it, but keep becoming fascinated on just how high quality it seems like it's going to be, is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, which is coming out on the 19th of November. So much of what I see that they're doing with this quote unquote game is hardcore full-on simulator, and then also allowing you to live the life of a pilot of whatever you might want to do. There's a career mode where you basically, you start as like a new pilot, and you need to do different things to upgrade your license, and you can basically run as a business, and it's simulator level world building and living in the world, which is just fascinating. I was just, this guy on IGN has a great video where he goes into some of the details, and he mentioned a thing, just everything he kept mentioning kept blowing my mind. He's like, so they took real life, like the real life helipads that exist in the world, and added them into the game. And to be clear, what I mean by that is every single registered helipad that currently exists on the planet Earth has been added into the game. Tens of 70,000, 80,000, he named the number. So they're like simulating the world. And then he went on about all these other ways that they're doing it. It just blew my mind. Star Wars Outlaws, which we just mentioned, is coming to Steam on November 21st. If you haven't picked it up, keep an eye out. The Steam might be a good place to get it. That is fun. Marvel Rivals, which is potentially going to be an Overwatch kind of game that people are kind of excited about, that may actually work and challenge Overwatch. We'll see. Coming out on December 6th. Path of Exile 2 Early Access is also coming out on December 6th. This was supposed to come out in the next week or two and was delayed 3 weeks. That announcement came out on October 28th. So now it's been delayed until December 6th. I played Path of Exile 2 at one of the past PAXs. It seems like it's a good evolution of Path of Exile. It's not revolutionary out of Path of Exile, but that's what Path of Exile players want. They want an evolution. And if you want that ARPG and an alternative to Diablo, it's quite a good ARPG that focuses sort of like on the core mechanics of ARPG with like the real big skill tree and that kind of thing. And then we get to, which we've been mentioning, Indiana Jones on the 9th of December and Monument Valley 3, little game, on December 10th. All right, Sema, you gonna play any of those in particular? You were looking up Monument Valley.
I'm going to play Monument Valley 1 because that's on Apple Arcade, and I'm checking out Apple Arcade right now.
Yeah. I did play some of Monument Valley 1, maybe like half of it. That was a great game to play on airplanes at the time when I was traveling for work. I picked it up before one of my trips, and it's just a fun little chill puzzle game.
It looks well, chill, yes, but I think it's also mind-bending because the puzzles are based in these like Escher type surfaces. So like you could be walking along the top and then you hit a device which makes it so now you have to walk on the side, and then the way the pieces meet together is not completely predictable to me because my mind hasn't been that way.
Yep.
But they're like Escher type ways.
Yeah, little spatial puzzle-y stuff going on there, which is pretty cool. But in that way, it's a fun little puzzle game, and you don't need to worry too much about. I mean, there's like you have to like go in between these little enemies that are just like pathing back and forth in a predictable pattern, but it's not like there's no like fighting or combat or anything like that.
We talk about, coffee and contemplation time, which is like, for me, is like a morning thing. But there's also a time of day, like after I've sort of finished everything and I've turned, off my computer and everything, but I'm not quite unwired yet.
Yeah.
And that's what this game would be for.
Right. That is a good use. All right, Sema, well, I think that wraps us up for today. That was a good rundown. Verygood, thumbs up. Good stuff going on in the other games we're playing. Fun stuff coming out in the next couple months. Keep in touch. And if you would like to keep in touch, all our feed and subscribe links, of course, are on newoverlords.com, and our videos up on YouTube/newoverlords. Also stay in contact if you would like to hear more about what Contemplation Games is doing. We've got it in the next week. Our game should be announced in the next week. I'm to the point now. Our team is putting together our Steam store page, which is placeholder stuff, but we got to get that approved. Our website and social feeds will be put up for the game, and the Discord will be opened. Hopefully within 7 calendar days. Please come chat with us in our New Overlords Discord, where you can find that kind of news as well. That's newoverlords.com/Discord. You can also follow on all the social networks while they still exist, and we will keep you up to date there too. And with that, we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.